A very good evening and namaskar to all present here. We wholeheartedly welcome you to the fourth session of the virtual student exchange program of Amity University and Oxford Brookes University. We would like to begin this event with the Saraswati Vandana, remembering the goddess of knowledge and wisdom, as it believed in our culture to seek her blessings at the beginning of all things auspicious.
Can you hear the voice?
Agni is a Sanskrit word meaning fire. Fire god easy by he cleanse and purify everything.
या कुन्देन्दु तुषारहार धवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रामृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युत शङ्कर प्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती
We welcome all esteemed faculty members and participants of Oxford Brookes University who have joined to witness the rotating round of the Ascetic King, leadership from an Eastern perspective. Now, I would like to invite the speaker to the audience. Ma'am, we welcome you. A little something to introduce you to Dr. Anupama ma'am. Professor Dr. Anupama Rajesh ma'am is a professor at Amity Business School, Amity University, India. Her qualifications include a PhD in the area of technology and education, MPhil IT, MPhil Management, MBEd, MSc IT, PGDCA, PGBDA. She's also been trained for case studying at INSTEAD Paris. She has a teaching experience of over 22 years, including international assignments, which include teaching in St. London, Australia, and Singapore, and training of French and Italian delegates and students. Ma'am has written over 90 research papers and case studies for prestigious international journals and has 9 books and several book chapters to her credit. She received the renowned Sage and Emerald Journal. Her research interests are business intelligence, educational technology, marketing analysis, to name a few. While her teaching interests are in business intelligence, e-commerce, IT-enabled processes, and so on. She's an avid trainer and has trained the Union Bank of India, NHPC, IFSL, Tata Motors, Bhutan Power Company, as well as the Commonwealth Game Volunteers and Army personnels. She is a master trainer from Microsoft and is an Infosys partner for business intelligence and academic partner for SPM ERM SIM. She's won several awards and ADPA Research Award and has also awarded several outstanding paper awards at prestigious conferences at institutes such as the IIM Ahmedabad and organizations such as Emerald International Journal of Emerging Markets. Ma'am also has a MOOC to her credit. She's also the project lead for the coveted UKREI and Turning Screen in the United Kingdom. She also has 3 patents and 1 copyright in her name. Ma'am, over to you.
All right. This probably is the most embarrassing part for all of us to listen to ourselves, but I just did that so that the audience knows where I'm coming from. This embarrassment is repeated, but we just take it with a pinch of salt. Thank you, Manav, for those very kind words. I'm going to start my lecture, and I will start with a few prerequisites or statutory warnings, really. Now, if you see what I'm wearing and if you see my background, there are lots of colors in it, right? And so is a lot about my lecture. Whatever I'm going to say will involve a lot of imagery. It's not religion specific. It's just region specific because we are largely in the southeastern region. So it's going to be a lot of region specific. There's nothing about religion. It's going to be a healthy mix of history and mythology. So just enjoy. Don't look for any deeper meanings or connotations. Just enjoy the lecture. Why I will weave through all those various episodes and stories is because I'm going to trace you to modern day leaders and their thought processes. And the premise that I come with is that whatever they are thinking now and how they are behaving is can be actually be traced back to thousands of years. And that's how I intend to go about this lecture. So I'm trying to create a genesis of leaders' behaviors with our culture. So right away I'll start, and I start with this little couplet from Rig Veda, which is 1500, which was written in maybe 1500 BC. That's before Christ. And let me just play it out for you. It's written. It's in Sanskrit. I'm reciting that shlok. It's in Sanskrit, which is one of the most ancient languages of the world. And I will just explain to you, it's just a couple of lines, what it means after I've run it. Just give me a second. Now, why I decided to begin this lecture with this particular couplet is that if you look at the entire couplet, it says that, well, let all be happy. Let all be happy. And in these coronavirus days, it doesn't say, God give me happiness or give me health. It says, let all be happy. Let all there be that is good and auspicious, and nobody should be sad or distressed. But this is probably the beginning point of our culture, where we do not think of ourselves. And this is one of the cornerstones that I will build on, that we do not think of ourselves, we think of the entire world. I bring to you another Sanskrit word which says Vasudevai Kutumbakam, which I referred to in the last lecture also, which means that the entire world is my house or my home. So which basically means that uh, we do not, our culture from all the way from 1500 BC talks about everybody, inclusivity, and does not talk about self. The whole idea is about others. I take you to the next slide. And this is another very deciding cornerstone of our entire being. The first word, and it's a very, very important word, is the word Sanatan. Now, this is where everything starts from. Sanatan word in it's a Hindi word and comes from and means that there is no beginning and there's no end. So that is another very big cornerstone of our culture, of the way we think. Now,
Sorry,
just
stop you, ma'am. The PPT is not shared.
yeah, just a second. Uh, was it shared before this?
No, ma'am.
So after this, now you have come. So did
Yes,
the verse play?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. From here I lost you. Okay. Uh, so the word Sanatan. Sanatan means something which has no beginning or no end. And this is how we view ourselves. Just imagine for yourself a huge river that is flowing. You do not know where it comes from, and you do not know where it goes. And imagine yourself as a speck in that river. Now see the perspective that we come from. We say there is no beginning and there's no end. So essentially, another thing which I will bring you to, there is no birth and there is no death. You are just part of a flowing whole, something which is continuously flowing. So A, no beginning and no end. B, you're a minuscule part in this whole river which is really flowing. So then you are not supposed to take yourself very seriously, talk the ego, all those things also become immaterial because you are part of one flowing whole, right? So no beginning and no end. Next word. The next word is the word dharma. Contrary to what people think, dharma does not mean religion. It means duty. And that's a third a very important cornerstone of Indian culture, of Indian mythology, of Indian way of thinking. Everything is about duty. No religion, dharma is not religion, it is the word duty. That means when you've been sent here to do a certain duty, and we take our duties very, very seriously. Next, let me just show it to you. I think this is where it gets spoiled. So here. I think this is one of the most of our Indians out here, and I'm sure a lot of my UK friends also must know about the deciding or a very important text in the Indian culture, which is the Gita. Now, without going into the longer story, just let me tell you what this is about. There is this text, and there are these two people. One is Arjun, and one is the Lord Krishna. He's our God, and they are standing in a battlefield. And on one side is Arjun's family, Arjun's army, and on the other side is the opposing army, which also has his lot of his relatives, his teachers, etc. And he stands in the middle of the field and he says, I'm not going to fight them. They are my family, they are my friends. I'm not going to fight them. And then Lord Krishna gives a very long discourse, which I'm just going to bring out 2 or 3 very important points. Number one, please look at the imagery. This imagery where you see that there are opposing armies and somebody confused standing in the middle may or may not refer to an actual battle. This battle is in the mind. The mind, the battle that we face every day of greed, of lust, of ego, of should I do the right or should I favor my family, my friends, and so on. And then the Lord Krishna or maybe your conscience guides you what to do. And what are the 2 or 3 very important teachings that Lord gave? The first teaching that comes from Gita is that, well, there is no beginning and no end. And hence, no matter what you do and no matter how great you think you are, you're just speck in a big hole. So number one, you give up your ego. You understand that you're just one speck of a hole. Number two, he says that there is no birth or no death. All those people that you see, and this is the point I brought out last time also, in our culture, in the Indian way of thinking, everybody is a part of a bigger God. We come here to live, do our duty, and then go back and become part of the God again. Which means that, well, there is no birth or no death because basically I've come from God, I'm doing my duty and I'll go back to God. So that means there is no, the second important lesson that comes out from here is aqua and amity, stability of the mind, not to be too happy and not to be too sad. And that also kind of finds commonality with Buddhism, which says that another very important religion in the southeastern region, which says keep it stable out here. Nothing is so big that you should get distressed. Nothing is so big that you should be happy beyond a certain control. Because remember, no beginning, no end. You're part of a bigger whole. There's no need for either too much distress or too much unhappiness. The third point that is brought out here is the word, and which I will bring you next, is the word, just let me bring that to you, is the word virakti. Now this is a third very big teaching that gives you. So if I am part of a bigger purpose, if I am part of God, I've come here to do my duty and I'm going to go back, then there is no attachment. And there is, I'm supposed to behave like the lotus flower. Imagine a lotus flower. It remains in the muck of the pond, but yet flowers without letting the muck touch the lotus flower. Remains absolutely clean, doesn't let the muck of the pond dirty it. We are supposed to be like that. That despite being very much there in the entire world, doing our everyday lives, marrying, having children, earning, becoming big people, powerful people, rich people, we are not supposed to let all that dirty our minds and our hearts. Why? Because we have to be like the lotus, virakti, detachment. Being detached without, and it does not mean not having attachments. It means detachment. That you are like the rose, you are attached to everything and yet detached from everything. What you can kind of understand, everything is yours and really nothing is yours. Because you have to again remember that continuity, part of a bigger whole, and so on. Let me next take you to the next, what my lecture will focus on. The topic of my lecture, and I purposely do this, is called Ascetic King. The word ascetic means somebody who's left the worldly world and is somebody who's given up everything. And king means, normally when you think of a king, you think of a crown, you think of lots of riches, you think of thrones, etc. So if you look at the imagery, and I told you that I will use a lot of imagery, there is this particular imagery that I have on the left. That look at this particular king. This is the Lord Rama. The Indians will recognize that, recognize this particular image. But he's a king. He was a king of a very big empire called the Ayodhya. But yet he was exiled. So it's a long story. He was exiled. And when he was exiled, he said, and so his father was crying that, how can I let you go? You're my only son, etc. And he said, I am not only the king of this throne, of this crown, of the jewels, of this beautiful city called Ayodhya. I'm also the king of the forest, of the sea, of the rivers, of the birds, of the everything. So look at this, ruler of the physical and the formless. Because remember, we again trace that everything is part of the God. So even the river is part of the God, the trees are part of the God, everything. And also, very interestingly, he said, not only am I the king of this particular beautiful city and this throne and all that, I'm also the king of the jungle. And also, now I bring you to the next very important mindset. He said, I'm also king of the demons living in the forest. Now again, imagery. When we say demons, it doesn't really mean monsters there. What it meant was people who disagreed with how he functioned, or people who did not like him, or people who thought differently, who behaved differently, etc. Please understand that any of the mythology or history that is mythology, or these tales that are used, are usually about imagery. They are supposed to explain a bigger meaning to you. So he says that, well, so that brings you to the next very big lesson of inclusivity. When we are talking about being, ruling, we not only rule the city, we do not rule the throne, we also rule the heart and the mind. And we also rule the demons. We also rule the people who do not agree with us, who are not like us. Our job is to bring them also to our fold. So another very important imagery and a message that comes. And I'm going to sum all this up and take you to modern day leaders. Just give me another about 10 minutes to get to lay the foundation of where we are coming from. Now the next set. Now another very small interesting story. So this Lord Rama, who's living in the forest, decides, his wife is kidnapped by another demon king called Ravan. So I'll not go into that long story. And they had to go to the modern day Sri Lanka to get his wife back. And to from India to Sri Lanka, there was an ocean, and to cross that, they made a bridge of stones. Now I want to show you a very small video. Please watch this and I'll explain the significance of the video after I've shown it. So there's this Lord Rama. They are going to, I'm not very sure this has got some music, but we'll just enjoy it without the music. So they're going to Sri Lanka without to get the wife back, goddess Sita. And they're using these stones to make the bridge. Now, I want you to notice that not only the army is of a very strange character. There are monkeys, there's an elephant, there are these fishes, there were these tortoises, and see how the bridge is getting built. So I'm just going to use that once more so that you notice what I'm wanting you to see. So just let me see if it plays. Yeah. So just please notice there are monkeys at the back. That's all his army. There is a tortoise. There are these deer. There's an eagle. There are all these monkeys, of course. There's an elephant. And there are lots of these monkeys. A smaller animal that I missed somewhere there, down there. And there's a tortoise there. There are these birds. And of course, you will also see some small fishes. Now, you may say to me that, well, this is a very strange army. They were supposed to go and fight the mighty Ravan, the monster, the demon king, and they're taking these fishes and tortoises, etc., to fight with him. Extremely strange, really. Now, this is the next imagery that I want to tell you. Now, this imagery they actually didn't have all these animals, really. They were not these literal tortoises and fishes, etc. Basically, this imagery was that there were people of different types. So maybe there were people with monkey who were nimble. Maybe there were people who were like tortoises, slow to work at. Maybe there were these eagles, which are sharp minds, etc. But his job was to get that as a team. So so you have to build a team despite all the disparity, despite some of them behaving like monkeys, some of them behaving like fishes, and then get them motivated for a common purpose. And then the bridge gets built. So it's a beautiful imagery. It's not about actual fishes going to fight the demon king. It was a very powerful image of inclusivity, of getting everybody together, of despite how they look, despite how they think, despite how they behave. This powerful imagery is about teamwork. And when I go to teamwork, I take you to one more imagery of this imagery. Please look at this. So same Ram army, and there was this little squirrel. And while all this bridge was being, suddenly somebody noticed the squirrel was coming and taking a little bit of water and, in her mouth, and then putting it on the sand, and another little bit gulp of water from the ocean and another on the sand. And Lord Rama asked the squirrel, "Excuse me, but what are you doing? What?" So she said, "I'm trying to empty the ocean because I want you to succeed in your mission." And then everybody started laughing. Have you seen the size of the ocean? And do you know the size of your gulp? And she said, "Well, I put it there that, well, I'm doing my bit." So this is the next imagery, that everybody does their bit, no matter how small. And that's a photograph of him caressing the squirrel. And we Indian squirrels have three stripes of black on their backs. So it may look like, it actually is said that it is a sign of Lord Rama's fingers. So, but it's powerful imagery. It says that, well, I'm doing my bit. I don't care how small and insignificant I am. I'm a squirrel. I can only take that much gulp, and the ocean is vast. But if I do my bit, I am going to, contribute to the larger cause. Talking of the original word of inclusivity, please look at our Indian culture. What left on the left, you see a very big, Shikhandi is a very big warrior. And he was, in as per the story, I won't go into the longer story, he was half woman and half man. So maybe and he was hugely respected. Maybe it was about a transgender. So we have very strict rules about not disrespecting any transgenders. In fact, we are very scared of the curse of the transgender. Again, probably with the scare, we are teaching you inclusivity, that no matter what sex, male, female, or transgender, everybody deserves respect. On the right, you see one of our biggest gods. He's Lord Shyam or Lord Krishna. And if you see his color, he's black. So that Black Lives Matter, well, our God is black. So, you know how, and he was adopted. So in one imagery, we remove taboos, two taboos, that of being black. So black is worshipped. So if somebody is very black and beautiful, he may be, somebody's really black. So he may be, teased for being like the Lord Krishna, which actually is probably, Lord Krishna is supposed to be very beautiful, and yet he's absolutely black. And of course, he was the son of an adopted mother. He was adopted. And he always said, he always gave more respect to his adopted mother, the mother who adopted him. So again, a big taboo. Adoption is, it doesn't matter if you're born here or you're adopted here, as long as you love your parent, whoever's brought you up. So the importance of rearing up. So I'm just sharing little stories so that you understand where we come from. A couple of more, another of those mythological leader stories. And this one, again, teaching you a very important lesson. So there's this beautiful Lord Krishna, and there's this beautiful peacock. Imagine the beautiful plume. And Lord Krishna, because the peacock is so beautiful, decides to wear. So if you see the earlier image, he wears the peacock feather on his crown. So just look at that on the right. So because the peacock was on the on the crown of Lord Krishna, it became very vain and proud of itself. So Lord Krishna, to teach him a lesson, cursed him with ugly feet. So look at a peacock ever. It's beautiful. It's got this beautiful plume, and it's so beautiful animal bird. But if you look at its feet, they're really ugly. Another lesson, that if you become too proud and too full of yourself, you get these ugly feet. Another powerful imagery to teach you the lesson of humility. Another very important imagery that I will take you to. Of course, as a society, we have our own shortcomings, but one cannot dwell on shortcomings all the time. One should look at what we are supposed to do. So I show you three women. These are our goddesses. On the left, you see the goddess of learning. On the center, the goddess of riches. And on the left, the goddess Kali, the goddess of war, of strength. So please notice, learning, riches, and strength, all are women, and they are worshipped. Of course, as a society, we may have a load of problems, but at least we are at least the objective is that respect and worship women. If not worship, at least they have to be given their due respect as individuals. Because remember, our goddesses are women, and they are worshipped for their strength, for their riches, and for their learning. A couple more. One of our very revered leaders is Harishchandra, and he's the king of. He was a king, and he was so an epitome of truth and justice that he punished his own self and sold his own self to pay a certain debt that he had. So again, an imagery of, the Indians would know Harishchandra is a sign of truth and justice. Again, an imagery to teach you that truth and justice is more important than self. One last. Again, because I'm taking you to cornerstones of how Indians and Southeast Asians think. There's this another story of Lord Karna. He had a golden armor, not as something he wore, but that was a part of his body. And he was he used to donate every day for 1 hour in the morning. So the Lord, to test him, waited till he ran out of riches, and then came and asked for alms. So when he came and asked for alms, he had nothing to give. So he said, "I'm sorry, I don't have anything to give you." So the Lord said to him that, "All right, you're wearing this golden armor. Why don't you give me that golden armor?" And because he had given his word, and because it is about giving, if you see on the right, he tore open his body and gave, and he knew he would die because that was part of his body. But he tore open that golden armor and gave it to the Lord. And again, a very powerful imagery. All these are imageries. They may or may not be true, but they are imageries. When we talk of leaders, I have taken you to some mythological leaders, and next I'm going to take you to a couple of religious leaders. So Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, which is a huge, it's a religion followed by so many South Asian. He was a king, and he gave everything up, and everything about Buddhism is about giving and about giving up everything and being completely stable in your mind. It's about equanimity. No amount of sadness or no amount of happiness should disturb you here. And this is where I go to the next part of my lecture. So if I have traced the various mythological leaders, religious leaders, our various gods, and I have brought out the imagery that they kind of talk about. So the few things that I brought out is detachment, of being equanimous, in your mind, of stability, of continuity. These are the few things that I have brought out. And now I'm going to trace you modern day leaders of Southeast, our area, Indian subcontinent. And I'm going to talk about their behaviors, and I'm going to try to associate their current behavior with what they have grown up with. So starting immediately is my first leader, of course, without any political leading. That is why when I began, I said, we're not talking of any religion, we're not talking of the left or the right, and we're just going to stick to the facts. So our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he likes to be called himself the Pradhan Sevak, which basically means the prime servant. Again, if you look at where we are coming from, about giving, about serving, a prime minister is not supposed to be the ruler of a big house, of a big car. He is supposed to be the servant of all. So that's how the imagery works. On the first few days of his taking office, he went out on the street, took a broom, a big broom. Of course, it was imagery again, and started sweeping the roads. And he said that all of us as Indians must take care of cleanliness. Again, a powerful imagery of serving. Again, very interesting thing that he does. He, of course, comes from very humble beginnings. So he was a tea seller in a station, somebody who would earn like less than a pound every day. But and from that kind of a family, he lives alone in the prime minister's house, does not allow any of his family members to live with him, wants to be absolutely squeaky clean of any kind of favoritism or bias, donates his entire salary to the girl child. And even if he goes to inaugurate big projects, goes and sits with the workers who have made that project, not the project leaders, not the directors, nothing. He likes to sit with the project workers, people who've actually made those, picked up the bricks, done the thing, and sits and gets himself photographed with them. Look at the imagery. Imagery is that of being for everybody. Being high or low doesn't make a difference. Everybody is similar. Of inclusivity. So that is why I trace those values back 1500 years ago. Interesting, another very interesting commonality that I will show you in the modern day leaders is that all of them seem to be bachelors. So remember, ascetic king, a sage, somebody who's not married, whose riches don't matter, who doesn't have a family, etc. So this is some kind of a strange coincidence in all the leaders that I picked up from politics, from business, and from religion of today. Next one, Abdul Kalam, our ex-president of India. He was a world-renowned astrophysicist. And you know, when he passed, again, a bachelor, strange coincidence, lived alone in the entire president's house, opened the president's house for everybody, said this, I'm a, and was popularly called the people's president. He was very fond of children. And when he died, his only possessions was one veena, which is a musical instrument, one CD player, and one laptop. He was a world-renowned astrophysicist, created the first low-cost tent of the world. Absolutely, because remember, giving, being inclusive, being there for not only for the rich people, for also for the who are have-nots. He started a very interesting movement amongst the youth. It was called "What Can I Give" movement in 2012. What can I give? Remember, again, we trace it back to our origins. Used to have tea with different religious leaders every day, inclusivity. And you know, his one of his major works, or what he's known for most, is what he said was unity of the mind. He said, we as Indians are diverse. We have so many religions, cultures, etc. So he said, I want unity of the mind. And you'd be surprised. And again, I bring you back to that Rig Veda and well, let all be happy. The last lecture, which he was speaking, and he just died while he was speaking, was creating a livable planet Earth, sustainability. So very interesting. Look at the behaviors of modern day leaders and trace it back to our history of 1500, of 2000, 3000 years ago. I bring you to the next leader, Narayan Murthy. He's, and I'm just going to read it to you. He's amongst the 12 greatest entrepreneurs by the Fortune magazine. He's called the father of IT by the Time magazine. Of course, he's a father-in-law of Rishi Sunak, which is a chancellor of UK. You would know Rishi because I think he's number 2 in UK cabinet. He liked to call himself the compassionate capitalist. Again, remember, no harm in having money. It's okay to be capitalist. No, but there has to be a compassion to it. There has to be. So very few Indian rich people you will find flaunting their yachts and aeroplanes. They want to be seen with helping others, you know, doing philanthropy. Because remember, we come from a culture of where giving is glorified and taking or usurping is hugely frowned upon. His wife, the Sudha Murthy, has got the Infosys Foundation, which builds toilets, houses, etc. And I want to finish off his introduction with what quote. He says, "No one is the owner of money. You're only trustee. It always changes hands. If you're successful, give it back to society that gave you so much goodwill." Remember, look at the continuity principle, the Sanatan principle. It is so deeply ingrained in us Indians that we do not think of anything. Everything is ours and nothing is ours, really. Next, Ratan Tata, the Indian favorite. He's a huge. He's the most valued. He's the first position in India's most valued brand with a net worth of that many billion. And you just read that. He's worked as a blue collar employee in his own company. He always sits next to his driver. And of course, he is given the largest ever grant to CNU. He comes, so I'm going to show you a very interesting video. And for that, I'll just share unshared for a minute so I can share the volume. And when I play it, just somebody can just tell me if you can hear it. And here goes.
Last year on February 6, 2018, Prince Charles wanted to give Ratan Tata the Lifetime Achievement Award for Philanthropy at Buckingham Palace.
Yes.
Everything was set. It was under the auspices of the British Asian Trust. I reached London on the 2nd or the 3rd of February, and there were 11 missed calls from Mr. Tata.
Yeah.
So I said, God, what's happened? So I'm picking up my bags at Heathrow from the conveyor belt, and I called Mr. Tata. I said, what's happened? He says Tango and Tito, his dogs.
Yes.
One of them had fallen terribly ill.
Yes.
He's saying, I can't leave him and come.
So sensitive.
I said, Mr. Tata, Prince Charles has organized this Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yes.
He didn't come.
He did come.
And you know what Prince Charles said?
Yes.
He says, that's a man. You know, Shakespeare ends Julius Caesar in a very fine way. He says the elements were so mixed in him of Brutus that nature might stand up and say to all the world, this was a man. That's the man that Ratan is. That's why the house is what it is. That's why the house of Tata is what it is. That's why it is on stable course. Leadership is not about what you do. Leadership is also about what you believe in.
I make a very important point out here. Please look at it. This gentleman, he's being called by the King of United Kingdom. And he doesn't go there because his dogs are ill. The respect for a dog. So a dog is equal. He loves his dogs. Again, interestingly, again, a bachelor. He is not married. And he lives with his dog. So for him, remember, we said everybody is part of God. So even a dog is not a dog. It's an element of God, and he loves that with so much that if that dog is ill, he's stood up to the King of England. And the other side, the King of England, Prince Charles, not really king, the king in waiting, also understands the emotion behind it. Does not see it as a snub that okay, he's not come and taken the award. He's understood the emotion behind it, that he's so attached to his dogs, and which he does not see as animals, but as somebody he loves, that he has decided not to take that award at a later date. So please look at the powerful messages in this video of compassion, of empathy, of treating everybody with love and and an extreme humility. A Lifetime Achievement Award from the King of England is no mean thing, but that's an extreme humility that you see in some of these Indian leaders. Again, the Azim Premji. He is called the Tsar of IT industry. So the Narayan Murthy is called the father. He is called the Tsar. Again, I quote to you some figures: 20 most powerful men by Asia Week. 100 most influential people by Time magazine, 500 most influential Muslims in the world. He donated half of his wealth by signing the giving pledge. So he dropped straight from the second most richest man in India to 17th. He just gave it away. There's a Azim Premji Foundation, and which is about improving schools, about everything that there is. And interesting, again, very interesting quote I will take from him. He says being rich doesn't thrill him. No yachts, no, it's about giving to him. And he was the first Indian to sign the giving pledge, which is done by many rich people, and of course, a top Indian philanthropist. And again, I end with this quote of his introduction. I strongly believe that those of us who are privileged to have wealth should contribute significantly to try and create a better world for the millions who are far less privileged. Again, please see what I began. Let all be happy. Let all be, free of stress, of unhappiness. We just don't think of ourselves. We think of the entire world as ours. Let everybody be happy. That's how I began with that Rigved couplet, and that's where I'm ending. So interesting, important takeaways in just about 30 seconds. Um, our Indian culture talks about number one, our duty. Do not run away from your duty. Duty as a ruler, duty as a leader, duty as a human being. There are a lot of these powerful imagery of giving, of treating the entire world as one. Third important, detachment of everything being yours and really nothing being yours, because everything is about continuity, or you being a very minuscule part of a bigger whole. Next, you have to be the leader of the mind and the heart, not of a plush office, not of a big chair, not of a throne. The leader of the mind and the heart. Money comes and money goes, but you have to be leader of all. And next, inclusivity. Leader of all, not just of the people who agree with you or who are like you or look like you or talk like you or eat like you. Leader of all. Inclusivity. Very, very deep ingrained inclusivity. And again, last but not the least, don't get fixated to anything which is now. Think of it as one big whole. So I am purposely wearing this particular shirt, and purposely I have that background which has got so many colors. Please look at those colors and look at my shirt. No color or no flavor is more or less. Everything is a part of a whole. The minute any one color says to the other colors that, okay, I'm the greatest and I'm going to be most important, then there will be a mess. There will not be that beautiful continuity that you see here. That is the biggest takeaway from any of our Indian cultures, in Southeastern cultures, Southeastern imagery, Southeastern religions, Southeastern behaviors. That there is no one way of thinking. So in our religion, we say if you can worship God as your lover. In the case of Lord Krishna, you can worship him as even in Sufism, they see their Lord as a lover. You can worship him as a best friend, as Arjuna, between the friendship between Arjuna and Krishna. You can worship him as God, or you can decide not to worship him at all. You can just say that, okay, I don't worship. You can go for the formless, such as a Sikhism, that there is no form. I'm just going to worship. Or you can worship the sun, the fire, the water, the earth, any of these things. There is no one rule. There is no dogma. There is nothing. Everything is fluid. Everything is acceptable. Everything is about inclusivity. So with that, I think I'm going to come to the end of my what I had to say. And there is some research papers and of course some of my own thoughts. And this is where I end. If you see, there is a lot of these leaders on the background, and purposely I have done that so that you understand that a lot of these leaders have contributed to where we are. They're both Indian as well as all over the world. And that's about it. And I'm open to questions after that, or any comments or anything. Thank you so much. So thank you for having the patience to listen to me.
Thank you so much, Anupama.
My pleasure.
A complete contrast, I suppose, on UK considerations and approaches to leadership and things like this. It's a real learning opportunity from a UK perspective, really, to broaden the mind and engage more fully with how leadership is perceived, which I think is fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm open to if there are any questions or anything that anybody would like to say. So Karen didn't join, right?
I think she was in at some point. She did join.
I think
she's not here now.
Yeah, no problem. So I think I've stunned everybody in silence. Anybody, any questions or anybody, any comments? Normally we have so much of happy conversation on. I suppose it became a little heavy. No problem. So Simon, I will share the PDF of this particular lecture with you, and you can, yeah. So Helen, yeah, please. Helen, I think was raising a hand. Yeah.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Anupama?
Absolutely, absolutely. I can.
Thank you. I'm getting to learn how to use Teams. Apologies.
No
Thank
problem.
you very much for your lecture. I was wondering, as you were speaking, thinking about all of your achievements, all of your endeavours that we were shared with at the start, where you find you draw your strength as a leader from. Are there any particular aspects of the culture that really resonate with you in your current role?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Helen, I've had like any other human being, I've had my own ups and downs, and I think at this point, at each point in your life, various things influence you. I think in this point of time, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a reference. The Indian life, so as to speak, is about 100 years, considered 100 years, and it is considered that the first 25 you study, from 25 to 50 you're supposed to get married, have children, etc., etc. After 50 you're supposed to kind of start detaching, because remember that's where we began from, and detaching from the world day-to-day affairs of the family, and start getting ready for the ultimate journey. And after 75 it is assumed that you will go for your ultimate journey. I'm about 52 and I lost my mother a couple of years ago. That had a very, very big impact on the way I thought. Maybe I was more ambitious, maybe more, if aggressive is not a bad word, aggressive in my approach 2 years ago. But after I lost my mother, I bring you to that word detachment. I thought to myself that no matter what I did, so again, I may please repeat, for the sake of repeating, in our culture, we are supposed to give up and say, okay, now I'm detached and I'll not do anything. And because that is extreme, that's completely wrong. We are supposed to be like the lotus flower. So supposed to be here, do my duty as a wife, do my duty as a professional, do my duty as a mother, and yet be detached. So I'm probably now in that phase of mind where I'm trying to detach from everything material, and I'm trying to tell myself that this ego which I had is really nothing, because no matter what I do in life, but that does not mean not doing anything. It only means that I remove the ego part of from my personality. That is why I said it's very embarrassing to hear those intros, but just because we go for these international programs where we need to justify where we are, I'll allow that to be read. But I want to understand. I want to ingrain myself completely that I'm really nothing. I am just a speck in a big hole. And I'm just contributing and doing my duty. And I have to do that duty to the best of my ability. But if tomorrow it is time to go, it's time to go. And so there should not be extreme attachment to my car, to my house, to my family, to my position, to my chair, to my office. So if tomorrow I have to go, I will say, okay, Tata, bye bye. I've done my duty. I've lived my life well. I've whatever was assigned to me, I've done well, and now it is time to go back to that God that I have come from. I think that is where I want to reach. As a human being, I suffer from all kinds of human emotions, of sadness, of disappointment, of all kinds of things. But I suppose that is where I want to be, if that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Just reflecting on what you were saying, it gave me a very peaceful feeling.
Thank you.
I wish you very well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Peace is, I suppose, the new oil. And that is the whole thing, that we have to be, and the peace has to be here. It doesn't matter if countries or everything or human beings are at peace. The peace has to come from here. That is why I talked of stability and equanimity.
I think that might be about it, Anupama.
Okay.
Very heavy stuff there, but really fascinating, because there's a very different sense of viewing leadership there from a perspective. Hopefully it gives the listeners a real sense of reflexivity to kind of reanalyze what they do in a role of leadership, or what they might aspire to, and so on and so forth. And hopefully it gives them the ability to step back, reframe, reanalyze, almost with different criteria, and then I think about it differently. It helps me to reflect a lot, certainly.
Simon, just one question. Would you think it would be a good idea next time? Just asking you, would it be a good idea if we run a little bit about Amity, about 5-10 minutes about Amity as a group, because these students will trust us as Amity as a brand and come to India. Do a little about 5-10 minutes about Amity Business School, which itself is an achiever, and then introduce you to a couple of key people, such as the person who looks after the placements, so that at least they get to know that what we do in terms of placements, of student engagement, so as to say, where students are assigned internships, etc. So that will be a good showcase, and from us as an organization. Would you think that would be a good idea? I will work accordingly.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Get the students invested in the idea of feeling like they're there, but they're not there yet. Definitely.
Yeah. So I'll work on those lines. And the last one that I was just thinking, if that's okay with you, we'll do a little bit of a cultural show for you, because India is a land of culture, of foods, of dances, of colors, and we'll do a little bit of a bouquet of culture for you in terms of dances, songs, etc. And we'll show you different parts of our culture, if that's okay for you.
That's absolutely fine as well. It was all a part of the cultural plan anyway, because it's an important part of the learning process.
So then we are sorted. Then maybe I will extend an extension to the Dean if he would like to do the first 10 minutes of introducing Amity, but that would depend on his availability. Otherwise, I will do it. And I'll bring in the other members of Amity to and introduce them to the roles that they are playing to make Amity the brand that it is.
Yeah, and feel free to throw some pictures in of like the campus and things like this.
Yes, that's what I'm
real tangible sense.
So I will have that very formal presentation, which is a standard presentation to be used. But I'm going to send out a few volunteers and ask them to take actual photographs and then put a collage there to show you the real pictures. We're a very happening campus with an inbuilt food court, etc.
Absolutely, sounds great.
Okay, then I'll see you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the patience of listening to my thoughts, and thank you.
Thank you so much as well, Anupama.
Thank you.
I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.